Alright, let's have a look now at the writing test, which is the second thing that you will do after reading and use of English in the actual exam. So the questions here are very simple. You just need to spend a lot of time writing and checking that what you wrote is correct. So this has two parts. The first part, they choose a certain topic and you have two opposing opinions or views on this topic. So one person says something, the other person says something different or normally contrary to the first view, and your task is to write an essay in which you accommodate both opinions and also give your own. It says it here. Yeah, include your own ideas. So, mm, there's really no suggestion for this. Yes, in my case, for some reason, maybe it's not the same for everyone, but I think it's very plausible that it also happens to you. I ran out of words very quickly. I mean that I tend to write more than this limit. So for me it was challenging to say a lot of things in very few words. Probably you will also find that this limit is very short for you. Now I read somewhere, I will post the link to this kind of guide for teachers that prepare students for taking this test, that it's not really so important that you stick to this limit as long as what you write still makes sense and is coherent and is necessary for the whole text to make sense, as long as obviously you don't write twice as long as this. So instead of 280 words, I found that I think in this part I wrote like 300 and something similar in the next part, because in the next part the word limit is larger, you are allowed more words. So in each part I surpassed that limit like for 20 or 30 words. As I showed you before, I got my lowest mark in writing and I thought I had done it reasonably well, except for maybe this limit, sticking to it. So it may actually be a good idea to try very hard to stay within that limit. Both sides. Don't write too much or don't write too little. I find it very hard to write too little in this exercise because these are actually very few words. You will pass this limit very easily. So main challenge probably would be to don't use as many words. And here just rewrite what they say, maybe add a little introduction and then try to combine what both texts say. I didn't do anything like saying the first guy says this and the second guy says this. I just wrote the different points of view, because you will find that these things are very reasonable. Anyone could say them. So it's like taking what two different people say, and also it's like looking at two sides of the same coin. Anything isn't perfect, so there will be a good side to it and a bad side to it. So it's what these two guys highlight. One focuses on what's good about something and the other guy focuses on what's bad about it. So you may find that you share the same views on whatever topic is chosen. So just start with some little introduction and then jump to what's good about it, what's bad about it, and then something else that they didn't mention, and you think about this topic. So that would mean your own ideas you can write afterwards. That's what I did. First rephrase what these guys said, then what these guys said, and then my own extra opinion about this topic and some conclusion. There's not much mystery in this. Then for this second part you have to choose between or among one of these, and in this case, in this sample test, it also only happens in the last question that they suggest that you write something about a specific book that you may or may not have read. I don't know. In my case, it was the last 5 questions, unlike this one. So I had this problem. Oh yeah, in this case it seems like it is also about a specific book, or film or whatever, but something that you cannot just say your opinion, that you have to stick to something that someone else produced. So this is very limiting because I find it very unlikely that you have read these 2 random books. You may have, you've been lucky, or maybe there is some list of books that fall into these kind of questions. I have no idea about that, so if anyone knows, can leave a comment about that. I'll be grateful to you guys. And so I was limited to choose between the first 3. And I had the problem as I was reading them that there were 3 different things about which I didn't have much to say. So 3 things that don't interest me at all. I can remember each of them, but in the end I ended up writing about fashion, which is something that I couldn't care less about. So if I chose that, it means that the other 2 were even less related to me. So it may happen to you. You may not be so lucky as to receive the questions on things that you have a lot of things to say about. Oh yeah, one of the others, I give you as many examples as I can remember so that you guys have more background or more experience in what kinds of questions you may get. It was something like, if you have recently done any volunteer program, talk about it. I haven't, so automatically that question is outside of my scope. So I can't remember the other one, but in the end I chose fashion. And you may do what I did. I wasn't expecting this situation that I didn't know what to write about. None of the options satisfied me. So what I did is take a different attitude towards this exercise, and something that in principle I don't like or I don't care about, like fashion, write about it but to criticize it. So if you don't like the questions that you have, you may choose one that you don't like and then be critic about it. Say what you don't like about this thing. So probably doing this, you will not run out of options when it comes to choosing what question you're going to answer. And again, try to stick to this limit, because if you pass it even by a few words, they may be very hard on you. I don't know. I guess it just depends on who corrects your exam, and since that's out of your control, it's better not to take any risks. And I don't know, just start with some little introduction, then go to the meat of your essay and finish with some quick conclusion, and that's it. Use complicated expressions, but to a certain extent. Don't try to write each sentence as an idiom or something like this, because it's not going to sound natural. And as I have advised at some other points, I think if you can choose between using a phrasal verb and a non-phrasal verb, which means the same thing, use the phrasal verb as long as you're sure that it actually means what you want to say. Because probably I'm not a native, but I guess that it sounds much more native-like to natives who are going to correct your exam. So probably it's a good idea to do that. So again, it's very useful to know a lot of phrasal verbs, not a lot of vocabulary. For example, I remember that writing about fashion, I knew the word catwalk. It's like the kind of platform that models walk when people are taking photos of them. So I threw that word in wherever I could to show that I have a wide vocabulary, to say it in a certain way, and that I knew what I was talking about. So if you happen to know a word about what you're writing about that is very specific to that field, then by all means go ahead and use it, because it will give the reader the impression that you know more than you actually know about that topic. Alright, I think this is all for this part. Oh, one extra advantage of using the computer-based exam instead of the traditional one is that you have a word count here, which automatically allows you to know how many words you have written. You see, it changes in real time, so it is very handy to not have to count words. And also it's very handy to be able to delete things without having to cross them out on your paper or rewrite in the last minutes of the exam to a final paper or whatever. So this is one of the main reasons why it is better to do the computer-based exam. Alright, see you in the next part, guys.